Hello, welcome to the Emerging Deliberate Leaders podcast, where we connect with professionals in their 20s and 30s to gain insight into their journeys, aspirations, and motivations. I'm your host, Anna, and I'm excited to bring you interviews with rising stars across a range of industries. Today, I'm interviewing Sarah Brewer. She is a portrait and branding photographer who is passionate about making people believe that their story is worth capturing. She picked up a camera at the age of 10 and had a young high school dream of wanting to be a photographer. She now has reached 2.5 years of professionally pursuing this dream. As someone who has lived in Boise the last 6 years, you can find her outside hiking or enjoying any kind of water activity with friends and family. Same here. Formerly a student at Boise State, her background is in communications and business and practices out these skills as the current president of her B&I group and chapter director of the Bodo Business and Bubbly group. Eating food is one of her favorite hobbies, as well as boxing, reading, and putting on events with local businesses. Her goal is to create an event space with photography rooms for all creatives and professionals to enjoy becoming inspired to chase their dreams. And from my perspective, it's been impressive to watch her network, lead different groups, and of course, capture the essence of people during her branding shots. So Sarah, with all this learning, I'm curious to know, how do you define success in your career?
Well, first off, I want to say thanks for having me today. It's so fun to see how we've come from college to just like outside in the professional realm. I feel like the idea of success has definitely changed. I feel now that I'm kind of working for myself, I think success is really that point in which you reach that freedom that everybody talks about, being able to do whatever kind of projects you want and kind of set up the life that you want. And so I feel that if you're able to do something that you love at your own pace, then I feel like in my eyes, that's success, because everybody wants to be able to do their own thing. And I feel like now that I'm there, I could technically say that I'm successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And like having this dream since you were 10, now being able to like live it out, that's, yeah, you're definitely successful.
Woohoo!
Do you by chance have a mentor?
So I don't have one specific mentor. I think because I'm in a lot of groups where there's a lot of older people, and that means like more mature, like they've been in business for a number of years. And I have quite a few that I think I go to for a lot of different reasons. I think instead of almost it only being a mentor, I feel like a lot of them are women, and I think they almost act as a motherly figure to me too. Think they just kind of support me emotionally, professionally, mentally. And so I go to a lot of those people just to ask questions and to give validations. And if I have anything, I feel like there's quite a list of people that I go to for whatever topic that may be.
That is so good. Do you say that like having the mentor has changed your ability to now be successful, or do you think you could have gotten there without the mentor?
There's no way. There's no way I could have done it on my own. I think having a mentor has helped me realize that I had a bad habit of not asking for help. And so now that I have those mentors, they kind of push me to be honest with them and say, hey, how are you doing? And if you're not doing the best, where are you struggling and how can I help you? And so I think that's really kept me accountable to be honest with people. And yeah, I definitely could have done it without them. I feel like I would have been stuck here just in my own head and trying to figure things out through the internet, which is not necessarily the right thing if it's not really specific to what you're doing and your needs.
Yeah, any of the WebMD searches too, right? It's like, this is not helpful.
Mm-mm, definitely
Yeah.
not.
Oh, that's great to hear. I agree. I think having a mentor is super important, and it's good that you have that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how, this is a good one. How do you prioritize your professional goals?
Well, I prioritize it because it's the only thing I think about. I think when I'm going through my dailies, I used to be that person that's just like, woohoo, going by the seat of my pants, like just winging it. But then I realized that a lot of things were kind of getting pushed to the side and missing out on getting back to conversations and stuff like that. And so I now kind of make a to-do list before I go to bed for the following day. And then I kind of prioritize that being like, okay, I know I could whip this out early in the morning, not have to worry about it. And as the day progresses, kind of getting to more advanced tasks, whether that's like finishing 3 different photo shoots that I have from the week before, or if that's making phone calls. And so I don't know, I feel like I've made a very structural list because before there's
Yeah,
no set
tell me
schedule
about the
that I had.
before.
There's no set schedule that I had. I would just be like doing things here and there, and then I'd forget and miss out on stuff. So my brain's pretty busy before I go to bed. So I just like write down all my things, and the next day I remember, and then I'm already thinking about it and doing it.
How long do you think it took you to recognize that like the chaotic not having structure like wasn't working for you?
I feel like I noticed that about 2 months into doing my own thing.
Okay.
But I think I've become way more intentional about making lists. I feel like in the last probably month and a half, I'm gonna be honest. But I feel like since then I feel less burnt out and also less exhausted because I think I've learned to kind of take my brain thoughts and kind of put them out on paper. And that honestly is surprising to see how much that can like take energy away from you.
Yes. Wait, say that again?
Like it's interesting to see how if you like you write things down and get them out of your thoughts that it helps with like the mental like burnout, so it kind of just avoids you know the thought process involved with that.
Yes. So I brainstorm a lot and I feel guilty when I do that because I'm like, oh, I could be doing this other thing. But every time I sit down and I take an hour just to write out what I think I want or where I think I want to go, I'm way more focused and like on track. Like the self deprecation stops. It's
Hmm.
really valuable. Yeah.
Yep, see, the things you get to learn as you just like grow up and go through all these things.
Yes. So, have you experienced any particular moments of doubt or uncertainty in your career?
Well, of course. I mean, I would say uncertainty is always a gimme. I mean, that's just kind of how life is that we don't know anything. We don't know what today or tomorrow brings. And so uncertainties I feel are something that I've kind of stopped kind of thinking about and mulling over, but doubts for sure, just because when I was first starting, you don't see money and the flow of those things at first. So you're sitting there, you're like, okay, am I gonna make this? Am I gonna have to go and get a job? Like, do I just, keep busting my butt and then never see any return? And so of course there's a lot of doubt, and you get that just being a human and either seeing other people through social media and stuff like that in comparison. But I think the last few months, like what I feel like when I started writing out my goals and stuff, I stopped caring so much about others and just kind of focused on what's my style, how am I going to approach customers. And so I think they've definitely started to die down, but I think at any given point those things can always come up.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me more your your moment of uncertainty. You're like now embracing that, and that's a part of just something that you know will happen. How has it been to like? Because that's scary. You're like you're now making friends with the enemy, kind of. And what does that feel like? What does that look like?
Mm. Well, what does that feel and look like to not care about being uncertain or
Yeah, like to make friends with it, to not let it like
mm.
stop you from doing anything.
Well, I think that's just come from my own self-development. And so I think the more I have worked on myself and kind of accepted the fact that the same thing about life, it's just you never know. I think it's helped me in becoming more confident in just how to go day to day. And so I think if you have the confidence to be like, oh, I know I'm going to achieve this and whatever else comes, like that's life. I think that makes things just like way more less stressful, and you just kind of take it as it is. And so I think becoming friends with the enemy is the way to just like kind of overpower it and overcome it. So it's not something that I think I find myself thinking about. Rather, I think that I'm facing it and I feel that makes me more prepared, whatever may come.
Yeah. Do you have an example that comes to the top of your mind?
I don't think I have an example that comes to mind like professionalism, or maybe I do. Um, So there's a time where this last week I had like a new client, they're a referral, they're from a different person. And I'm like, okay, like that's so awesome. Like I'm talking to them. And then of course, when you're getting ready to go to the photo shoot, you're like, oh my gosh, like are we gonna click? Are we going to have that same kind of synergy? And you have all these things like, oh, are they gonna like me? But then I have to stop myself from going down that train of being like, oh, what all could go wrong? But instead of being like, it's all going to go right because I know how I am. I know how I put people through a session. I like to have fun. I have my music set up. And so the more I know about my routine and how I like to do things, the better I feel going into it because I already know how I am and what I do. So I think that uncertainty becomes less because I'm like, well, people have had fun with me before, so why would they not have fun without knowing me?
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. That was a good example.
You're like, that was what I was looking for.
Yes. Yeah. And just like relatable point. I think at some point you come to the terms with who you are, and the success that you've gotten is from you being yourself. And whether that be quirky, whether that be super pinpoint, like professional, that's who you are and that's what you've owned. So like continue to own that. So I'm glad that you have figured that out, that you know that.
Took a while.
Are there any career related goals or aspirations that you've been hesitant to pursue?
I remember seeing that question and I actually don't think I do. Uh I think my goals are long term and I'm not really that person that if you ask me like, oh sir, what's your 5-year plan, I'd be like, well, I don't really like that question because I can plan as much as I can for 5 years from now, but anything can happen a year from now at the year 3. And so I think that as long as I am pursuing in the way that I'm just trying to like touch people's lives and change the perspective of photography, I think that's kind of my goal. And I haven't been uncertain about that just because it's something I've wanted since I was a kid. So I feel like now that I've done it, I don't have any uncertainty about what I'm doing because I think God showed me that that's exactly where I need to be.
Yes. You brought it up. What I also feel really hesitant to make a 3 year or a 5 year plan because I'm on the same boat of like, well, anything can happen. Why am I going to make a plan if I'm just going to like be let down? Let's brainstorm here. Like, what would make 5 year or 3 year like more attainable? Like I liked how you said, well, you know your mission is to change the perspective of photography. Like you like that aspect. So if we know that, then like what do we need else? What else do we need to make that realistic?
Mm,
Because there's power in goal setting, right? But it's also
right.
scary and risky.
Well, I saw that you did something that I already do myself, which is vision boards. And so I have my vision board like right in front of me. And so I make small goals for the year. And as I'm looking at the board right now, I'm like, wow, like I'm already got getaways planned. I'm on my best adventure right now. I'm getting healthy and, fall in love will come later, but it's on there. But I think that going year by year and to say instead, like, I want to feel this way or I want to see myself in this space dressed this way helps like those 3 years become more attainable because you're going year by year and you're like, okay, well, by year 3, like me personally, it would be cool to have a space where I have my own photography and my own studio and stuff like that. It'd be way smaller than the 10-year big plan of like where I want to be at the end of it all. Um, but I know that each year, if I'm working on myself more and more, then I think the more the things in my business will come along with it.
Yeah. So you do have like broad 5 year, but it's not like detailed and specific. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
almost feel like that's, you know, from young, what do we know? I feel like that's kind of like the more realistic, like as long as we have them, right? Like we don't need to marry them all the details, but that year or the 90 days, like in my opinion, way more beneficial starting out because it's we're in like such a changeable, moldable decade. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I am happy to hear that you like aren't letting anything be a barrier to you how you're defining success or what you're going after. Like you're just doing it, and when you get stuck, it's like, all right, let's make friends with it. Let's keep going, which is a really great quality and something really impressive that you know in your 20s. So I'm so proud of you.
Ah, you're too sweet.
So you're a business owner, you're super young. Anything, does anything come to mind that you would want to maybe share to someone that's listening that's also young and starting a business, or
Mm,
maybe some like huge takeaways that you got, or
mm. So I feel like if you were like someone in front of me who was like, man, I'm thinking about doing all this. And what's interesting is that as kind of the generation, I want to say below us, but a few years behind us, I think they're realizing that they also like the idea of working for themselves because of the freedom, their chance to express and chase whatever they want. And if anybody's in a space like that, I want them to always remind themselves of why they want to go on their own, whether that's because they're not happy with the company they're at and like this, and this area. Then I think it's just to always remind yourself, whether that's an affirmation that you tell yourself, but if you have a gut feeling that you're meant to do something that you love, that you cannot ignore that. And what's really helped me to feel confident chasing that is becoming a part of groups. Just because you're around those people all the time, they keep you accountable. And, don't compare yourself and anybody else in the industry. While it's good to see that as a inspiration, not necessarily a goal, then I feel like that keeps you more on track of like how you want to do your stuff, not get meddled with other people's, perspective and approach. So anybody who's wanting to do that, I'm just that person. I'm like, just do it. You know me. I'm just like anybody, any of my friends, like, oh, I've thought about doing this. Do it. I don't want to hear it. If you want to have a feeling you want to do it, do it. So, yeah, it's a lot to handle, but at the same time, once you get after like that year mark, and then you reach 2, and then you reach 3, I wouldn't say it gets easier, but the hustle becomes less, and then now you're working on your business rather than working in it. And so there'll come a point, but you got to reach that first hill first in order to like, reach the plateau.
yeah, having the why you're doing it is probably really helpful in the moments where you're like really suffering, or it's I feel like it comes more often than not where your brain, your body's like, just quit, just like do something else, make a steady paycheck, all the lies that just come out. And so having that vision board or the why or whatever it may be that supports why you started is so important.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
That is the end of my like detailed questions. Now we're gonna do rapid fire. Think
Yo.
yeah, think like Brene Brown. Like she just asks the question, and then the first thing that comes to your mind, just like spit it out. Okay.
Okay, I'm
What's
ready.
your go-to source of inspiration when you need to refocus and motivate yourself as a leader?
I go to Pinterest.
Interesting.
That's the first thing that comes to mind. I feel like I look at Pinterest to remind myself of the beautiful things I'd like to create and like where I see my photography going. So that's an inspiration for the creative side. But I think as a leader, I find a lot of inspiration through TED Talks and seeing people talk, because not only does my business include photography, but down the road, I'd love to get into public speaking. So really finding speakers that I find motivational and in my sphere that I'd like to talk about helps me be like, oh yeah, like I could see myself in that space. And so always filling my brain with those, people on the stage is very cool for me.
Yeah. Pinterest, I was like, what? But it makes sense because
It makes sense now.
What's one self-development practice that you swear by, and how has it helped you in your leadership journey?
So self-development, it looks for me, since I mentioned doing a lot of public speaking and I have spaces where I talk in front of the room and lead the group, a lot of that has come towards reading books. Like one of them is How to Influence People, and there's a couple of other ones, but it really helps remind you of how to practice a message and how to drive it and to make people act upon it. And so there's all kinds of different ways to get somebody to do something, but I rather come from a place of like empathy, and I have more of an emotional approach. I feel like I want to get to people's hearts, and so the more that I develop my sense of emotional, awareness, and then lead that into how I speak, I feel like that just comes hand in hand. So I practice it in my BNI group. I get up there, I start with something, and yeah, just trying to, make sure that I'm all put together so that when I go out there, it helps.
Yes, public speaking. I love it. If you could develop any leadership trait overnight, what would it be?
Mm, ah, what kind of options are there for leadership skills?
If you want to take out leadership, just like any trait overnight,
Mm,
what kind of
I don't
leadership
even
skill?
have anything like first coming to the brain. I'm just like, meh, a trait. Probably just a little bit more confidence.
Hmm.
I feel like I have some confidence, but um, I feel like that's something I've tried to work on. So yeah,
Yeah, a
just full
little.
blown confidence.
Yeah, a little affirmation for you. You are the most confident person I know at this point in time. So
Oh shoot.
write that
So
down.
maybe that was a bad one to pick.
No, no, no. It's moving on. What is your best tip or trick or tool to leverage your personal and professional life?
mm, Tip or trick. I feel that like journaling has helped me. I've been doing that over the last few weeks, just kind of documenting like how I'm feeling and where I'm stuck at. And that's been a very big trick to just like let my brain flow. And it's nice to go back. Like even a couple weeks ago, I wrote down this journal. I was like, I'm sick. I have no hope. And like, what do I do to like get better? And then here I am 2 weeks later. I'm like, oh my God, I feel great. And, I've improved in so many ways. And so it's really cool to reflect back and see like your ups and downs and to know what brought you up and like what brings you down. And so that's been really cool. So then that's a little bit of like almost a self-care for me too, is to spend time with myself and really see how I'm feeling and doing.
Yeah. You already kind of mentioned this, but I'll let you choose a different one if you want. What's one book or resource that has had a profound impact on your leadership style?
Untamed, hands
Oh,
down.
really? That's by
Yeah.
Glennon Doyle, right?
Yep. Well, I recently just read that, and I think because of my Business and Bubbly group, which is like a women's only networking group, there was a lot of messaging in there that I feel was powerful, that like uh, powerfully hit me, because there's a lot of things that I feel like women can do. And, throughout history, we've kind of been put here like below the standard for everything. And so now I feel like in this day and age, that narrative is changing. And so while I was reading that book, she was like, women have the chance to change the world. They can change their communities, they can do this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, like that's exactly what I tell the women. And so for me, that was more of, this is how I would speak to people about how I see them. And so, yeah, that book was like pretty good in that aspect.
I love that. Thank you. Well, that was all the questions that I had for you.
Mm.
Thank you for taking the time and pouring your heart into the answers and just showing us what a good leader you are developing into and you already are.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That is the end, unless you want to say something.
Um, I feel like I will leave you with the advice that led me to where I'm at today. It's something that everybody knows, pretty cliche, but if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So hopefully you can find what you love, and then you can just love your life.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. Bye bye.
Goodbye.